Hello children, welcome to our second class of kinds of sentences. Now before we move on to our next two kinds of sentences, let us just have a quick recap of what we had studied in our previous class. Now you all know sentences are of four kinds: assertive, interrogative, exclamatory and imperative sentence. Assertive and interrogative sentences we had already discussed in the first class. Yes, children? Right. Let's have a quick recap of that before we move on to learn about exclamatory and imperative sentence. Right. Now, let us recall what is an assertive sentence. Begins with a capital letter, states something, may be affirmative or negative, ends with a full stop. Some examples: India won the match by 5 runs. He does not get up early in the morning. Now you see in both the examples that we have here, both these sentences begin with a capital letter and end with a full stop, right? They are conveying some information to us, right? One is an affirmative sentence, the first one, because it does not have any negative word, whereas the second one is a negative sentence because it has a negative word not. Like we had already discussed, sentences which have the negative words no, not, never, nothing, those sentences are said to be assertive negative sentences, right? Time to revise interrogative sentence. Now, what is an interrogative sentence, children? Begins with a capital letter, asks a question, ends with a question mark. Examples: Do you read storybooks regularly? What is the time by your watch? So, both these sentences, again, they ask a question, hence they end with a question mark. And you see, in the first example, the sentence begins with a verb. Here, in this case, the verb is do. Whereas in the second example, the sentence begins with a question word, what. So remember, an interrogative sentence may begin with question words such as what, where, when, why, etc. Or they may also begin with verbs such as do, are, is, were, did, does, etc. Right? Now let's move on to our third kind. Look at these sentences. How fast he runs. What a horrible day I had. Oh, we lost the match. Now these sentences express a strong feeling or emotion. They begin with a capital letter and end with an exclamation mark. Such sentences are called exclamatory sentences. Now remember, children, exclamatory sentences are sentences that convey a very strong emotion. That emotion can be one of happiness, joy, dejection, sorrow, fear, horror, anything. Whenever you need to express a very strong feeling, you express it in the form of an exclamatory sentence. And all exclamatory sentences, they end with an exclamation mark. So you have seen one thing, that an exclamatory sentence is very different from the first two kinds of sentences that we had studied. Yes? An assertive sentence states a fact. An interrogative sentence asks a question, whereas an exclamatory sentence, they convey a strong emotion. So all these three kinds of sentences, they convey different kinds of information, right? One can convey a fact or information. One can convey a question. That's a different kind of information again. Remember, a question is different. You're asking a query. Whenever you have a query, that is an interrogative sentence. Whereas in an exclamatory sentence, that expresses a strong emotion. So all these three kinds of sentences, they convey three different kinds of things, right? Some more examples of exclamatory sentences. How well she recites. Ouch, I hurt my toe. What a beautiful painting that is. Look, there is danger ahead. Now, you see all these four sentences, they begin with a capital letter, end with an exclamation mark. They are all examples of exclamatory sentences because they all convey different kinds of emotions. Emotions which are very strong. The emotions can be one of joy, happiness. Like in the first and the third sentences, you see you are appreciating something or someone. In the first case, you are appreciating how well she recites. Yes? Whereas in the third sentence, you're appreciating the beauty of a painting. The second sentence, you see, is different from the first and the third sentences, right? Ouch, I hurt my toe. Now, whenever you get hurt, children, you use such words like ouch, oh, yes. That is also a strong emotion feeling that can also be conveyed through an exclamatory sentence. Look, there is danger ahead. Now here you can sense some caution, yes, fear. So all these feelings of fear, horror, joy, dejection, sorrow, happiness, every feeling, a feeling which is strong, can be expressed through an exclamatory sentence, right? Now, the fourth kind, let us discuss that. Have a look at these sentences. Do not play with sharp objects. Please give me some water. Wash your hands before eating. Now you see, all these three sentences, they express a command, a request, or an advice. Either say the first sentence, it expresses a command, yes, do not play with sharp objects. Yes, it's an order. Please give me some water. That's a request. See, the word please has been used. Wash your hands before eating. That's an advice. You're advising someone to do something for his or her good, right? So all these three sentences, they either express a command, a request, or an advice. They begin with a capital letter and end with a full stop, right? Now, how are these sentences different from assertive sentences? Now, students, you remember assertive sentences also end with a full stop, yes? And these sentences, as you can see on the screen, they also end with a full stop. But an assertive sentence, they state a fact or give some information. Whereas in this case, you can see they do not give us any information or do not state any fact. They tell us about a command, a request, or an advice. Such sentences are called imperative sentences. Some more examples of imperative sentence. Do not run down the stairs. Please help me with this sum. You should drink enough fluids. Shut the door. Please maintain silence in the hall. Right? So all these are examples of imperative sentence. Now, what we have to do here is we have to identify the following sentences as assertive, interrogative, exclamatory, or imperative sentences. Now, before we start doing this quick exercise together, let us quickly Remember or recall what are the 4 kinds of sentences. Remember, children, an assertive sentence states something, interrogative sentence asks a question, exclamatory sentence expresses a strong emotion, imperative sentences, they express a command, request, or advice. An assertive and imperative sentences, both these sentences, they end with a full stop. Interrogative ends with a question mark. Exclamatory sentence ends with an exclamation mark. Yes, so let's get started. Can you lend me a pencil? What kind is it? Yes, interrogative sentence. See, it has a question mark at the end. Simple. Take your medicines regularly. What kind of a sentence is this? It is an imperative sentence because it is expressing, yes, it is telling us about is it a command or an advice, students? It is an advice, right? So it is an imperative sentence. The stars are twinkling in the sky. It is an example of an assertive sentence because it gives us some information, correct? What an interesting story. This is very simple. Yes, it has an exclamation mark at the end, so it has to be an exclamatory sentence, correct? Now, some more. The students said their morning prayer. It is an assertive sentence. Good. Yes, because again it is giving us some information. It is giving us an information about what the students are doing, right? It ends with a full stop. What a delicious cake. Yes. Exclamatory sentence. Why did you call me now? Interrogative sentence because it is asking a question. It ends with a question mark. Call me right now. It is an imperative sentence. Now see, why did you call me now and call me right now both seem to be somewhat similar, yet they are not similar. One is conveying a question, whereas the other one is conveying a command. So the one that is conveying a question is an interrogative sentence. It has a question mark at the end, whereas the other one conveys a command and hence it is an imperative sentence. So remember, students, sentences convey different kinds of things to us, and the punctuation mark that you are going to use at the end of the sentence will depend on what the sentence conveys. If it conveys an order, a request, or an advice, it will end with a full stop. If it states some fact, gives some information, then also it will end with a full stop. If it asks a question, it will end with a question mark. And if it expresses a strong emotion, then it will end with an exclamation mark, right? So, with this we come to the end of today's lesson. I hope all of you are now clear with all the 4 kinds of sentences that we have learned so far. Yes? Now, after you have watched the video, remember to solve the worksheet. In the worksheet, you will have to identify the different kinds of sentences. Yes? Solve the worksheet so that you are sure that you have understood the lesson. Right, children? So, thank you for today.